We ready?
Yep, we're ready. It is 10.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Communication Skills. This is a community dementia education program of Alzheimer's San Diego. We're very glad that you're here today. Let's see if I can, there we go. Bear with me here. Hi, my name is Amy. I'm the Director of Education here at Alzheimer's San Diego. Very pleased today to be co-presenting this program with my colleague here in the education program, Jean. Good morning,
Hi,
Jean.
everybody.
Also with us today is a member of our clinical services team, Allison. Hi, Allison.
Good morning.
Allison is a master's level social worker. She is a clinical care coach on our clinical services team, and she will be with us during the webinar to help answer some questions. Let me tell you a little bit about how questions are going to go here. Here is our agenda for today. So this program is communication skills. I really think this is one of the most important programs that we provide here at Alzheimer's San Diego. It is really a core skill. All of us have essential communication skills. We've been using all of our lives a variety of different ways of communicating. But the fact is, when somebody is living with the symptoms of dementia, sort of all of the old rules of engagement don't apply anymore. We have to do things a little bit differently. The good news is we can learn how to do that. So what we'll be talking about here today is I'm going to start with a brief overview of what dementia is, what the symptoms are, and why communication changes happen in people who are living with Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia. That segment will be fairly brief. We're going to spend most of our time today focusing on strategies. Jean will come back on and talk about how to facilitate effective conversations, how to connect with somebody who might be experiencing memory loss, confusion, disorientation, and sort of general tips and best practices in communication with people who are living with dementia. Then we will talk about behavior, because of course, behavior is a form of communication. So we'll talk about how to respond to behavior when it is being used as a means of communication. And we'll make sure that you know where to go, how to reach out for additional resources and support. So first, let's start with that overview of dementia symptoms and how they affect a person's ability to communicate. First, just making sure that we are all using a shared vocabulary here. When I talk about dementia, I want to be clear, I'm not talking about any one particular disease. Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of dementia, but the word dementia refers to a syndrome, a group of symptoms, and they're different for every person, but this group of symptoms that is caused by some underlying medical condition. So again, that medical condition is frequently Alzheimer's disease, but there are many other types of dementia. We won't go into too much detail here today about the pathology of Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. We are going to talk a little bit about the different regions of the brain and how they impact these symptoms. But please know that our Dementia 101 program and other information that's available on our website, alzsd.org, has a lot of great information about the pathology of these diseases, the progression of these diseases, how to get a diagnosis, how to seek treatment options, for example. But dementia is a syndrome, a group of symptoms caused by some underlying medical condition, and it causes changes in these sort of key areas: a person's memory. Often it's short-term memory, but all kinds of memory can be affected. Language, that's verbal language, as well as the ability to understand spoken language and written language. Difficulty focusing one's attention, being able to concentrate or focus in on a person while communicating, for example, challenges with problem solving, overall changes to a person's behavior, their demeanor, their personality seems to change. And importantly, dementia frequently causes changes to a person's visual spatial abilities as well, changing depth perception, the ability to interpret contrast, etc. So I won't, this isn't a biology lesson. I won't spend a lot of time here talking about the brain regions and their different functions, but I do want to spend a little bit of time here because what I have found over the years as a dementia educator and as a caregiver myself, in those moments of deep frustration, when you are really struggling to connect with someone who's living with dementia, when you're really struggling with communication challenges, right? Kind of beating your head against the wall, it starts to feel like, or you're really starting to take it personally, what the person is saying or doing, asking the same question over and over again, for example, or maybe accusing you of something. What I have found is that in those moments of frustration, it can be really helpful to sort of pause myself, take a deep breath, and remember there is disease happening in that person's brain. I can't see it from the outside. They look pretty much the same to me, but there are changes deep inside the brain that are causing them to say these things, to act these ways. So having a little bit of a frame of reference for what's going on in there actually helps us as care partners to build more empathy and more compassion in those difficult moments. So this is an essential part of building your communication skills, just understanding a little better what's going on there. So be aware that most types of dementia do start in the temporal lobes of our brain, the purple region on the image, if you're able to see it there on the screen. The temporal lobes are in the center of our brain. This is really the seat of a lot of our short-term memory function, as well as a lot of our language ability. Now, because the temporal lobes are where the Alzheimer's type of dementia tends to begin, where it starts to develop first, where the disease process, the accumulation of those plaques and tangles, it starts in that part of the brain for most people. And that's why short-term memory and language abilities, communication problems, start so early on, even very early on in the disease process for many people. So the typical spread of the Alzheimer's type of dementia is to start in the temporal lobe and then to spread up into the frontal lobe, that big yellow region that you can see on the image there. Behind our foreheads is this large, very complex region of our brain that is kind of the CEO of our brain in a lot of ways. It's controlling our executive function, our ability to take in lots of information and decide what to do with it. What piece of information do I need to use here? How do I solve this problem? This is the seat of our kind of decision-making abilities. This is the place in our brain where emotions are regulated. So if I've had a very hectic morning, I faced a lot of traffic on my way into work, right? By the time I arrive at work, I might be very, sort of wound up. I might be frustrated. I might be irritated with all those other people on the road. But I still want to sort of ratchet it down, say hello to my coworkers, right? Act pleasant if I can, right? That's actually a very complicated cognitive task. And this is the part of our brain that does this for us. It doesn't make us feel emotions, but it helps us kind of regulate our emotions. This is also importantly to the topic of communication. This is the part of our brain that allows us to have empathy for other people, to see something from another person's perspective. This is very, again, complicated. It's a complicated cognitive task. And when there is damage in this part of the brain, what we'll see is that it's hard for people to regulate their emotions. When I'm happy, I'm really happy. When I'm upset, I'm really upset. And it's very hard for me to sort of engage in my previously well-controlled kind of behavior and demeanor. And it's also hard for people to see your side of the conversation, right? You and I are getting into an argument. I'm asking the same thing over and over again. And I'm really, sort of getting under your skin with this repeated question. Well, not only can I not remember that I've asked it, I also can't clearly understand why you're so upset. What is your problem, right? Because I don't have empathy. I'm lacking not only my memory of 5 minutes ago in that conversation that we've already had, but I'm lacking the ability to understand why you're getting so upset with me, that the fact that I have contributed to this. This is a really a helpful thing for us to remember as care partners in those moments of struggle. The parietal lobes are up kind of on the crown of your head, the light blue region of the brain there. This is involved in a lot of our processing of sensory information. And so if you sometimes feel like you're on a different planet from the person that you're caring for who's living with dementia, right? How are we both seeing this situation so differently, right? They literally are seeing it, hearing it, smelling it, feeling it, sensing their environment differently than you are. So keep that in mind. Our occipital lobes and our cerebellum are in the back of our brain, heavily involved in our vision, as well as in our balance, our ability to engage in fine motor skill, right? The manipulation of a pen or a utensil, for example, our overall coordination. So I hope that that little tour of the brain helps you to remember in those tough moments that these communication changes that we see in a person who's living with dementia are symptoms. It's not something that the person is doing on purpose. It's not something that they have any control of. They are symptoms related to structural and chemical changes that are happening in that person's brain as a result of progressive disease. So I've given you some examples already of a few of these, but let's just review the most common communication changes that we see in people who are living with Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. First, the difficulty with finding the right word, saying the right word, stringing words together the right way, or finding an actual word that you want to use, as well as difficulty understanding words when they are being read or said. Challenges connecting what is being seen with what is heard. So an interesting thing about the wiring of the human brain, if you will, is that so much of our that prefrontal cortex, that really smart part of our brain that I was talking about before, so much of that wiring is devoted to our eyesight, right? Not so much is connected to our ears. So it's very easy, it's very common, I should say, as the disease is progressing in many people who are living with dementia, for them to begin to struggle much earlier with understanding what they hear. They can understand things much better if they're also able to see, to take in some visual cues to help them understand. So if I were, sitting in this room and I couldn't see the door, but I knew that there was a door behind me and I heard it open, right? With my normal, healthy, functioning brain, I would remember that the door was there. I would hear it. My parietal lobes would perceive, oh, I just heard something over my right shoulder. And when I hear that human voice, I'm going to connect it. Even though I can't see what maybe is going on over there, I understand there's a door over there. Somebody just walked into it, walked in through it. Right. So in a person with dementia, there's a lot of room for that process to kind of fall apart all along the way. Whereas if I could actually see the person, if they wait until they're in my line of sight to start talking to me, right, then I can better connect what it is that I'm hearing with what I'm seeing and recognize that that's a person who just came in and is talking to me. I talked about difficulty with attention and concentration. It can be difficult for people with dementia to filter out background noise or also kind of visual clutter, visual activity, as well as noise. We see in people who speak more than one language fluently, pardon me. In people who speak more than one language fluently, we will frequently see what we call primary and secondary language confusion, where my primary language, the language I learned first as a child, will remain stronger. Languages I learned later in life are more of a struggle early on in the disease process. I mentioned repetition, a very, very common behavioral change, a very common communication problem in people with dementia. That can be saying the same thing over and over again, or more commonly, it's asking the same question over and over again. And again, I want to reiterate, the person isn't doing that because they weren't paying attention. They aren't doing it because they're trying to get under your skin. They're doing it because they, in all likelihood, don't actually remember not only your answer, they don't remember having asked that question already. And finally, one of the common communication problems that we see is just this sort of disconnect that happens more and more often because of all of those changes in the brain that I just described. If you and I, as two people who don't have dementia, are having a conversation and I say something that doesn't quite make sense, right? I say it and I see on your face, you look puzzled and you look confused. I'm going to understand. I have empathy, remember, because that part of my brain helped me understand that puzzlement expression on your face means I didn't say that quite right. I'm going to find a different way to say it. In all likelihood, I'm not going to get angry at you for not understanding me. I'm not going to withdraw and say, forget it. I don't want to talk to you. Right. But that's because my brain's got the capacity to help me understand what happened and help me kind of find a workaround and figure out a different way to try to communicate that to you. If I don't have that capacity, then my only response might be to just simply withdraw, to stop talking so much, to become quieter, or to get angry at you, to get frustrated. Well, you're not listening to me, right? You're the one who's not paying attention. Maybe you're the one who has the memory problem, right? We'll hear that kind of thing from time to time. Anosognosia is a really important and very helpful concept in, again, cultivating empathy and understanding and patience, but also just sort of understanding the nature of these conditions. So anosognosia is a fancy Greek word from the ancient Greek for without disease knowledge, and it refers to how much insight a person has into what's changing with them. Think you're gonna recognize some things about maybe the person that you care for here. So about 50% or so of people in the early stages of dementia have this medical condition that is called anosognosia. They cannot see, they cannot understand, they do not have insight into the nature of their own illness, right? They're not remembering not only that what they don't remember, they're not remembering that they have a memory problem. Right, so all of these changes are happening all around them. People are swooping in to try to help, and they don't understand why you're trying to help. They think everything is fine. Imagine that feels familiar to many of you here in the webinar here today. So about 50% of people fall into this category of having no insight into what's changing with them. About 20%, the gray part of that pie chart, if you're able to see that, about 20% of people with early dementia do know that something's going on. They see the memory loss or the changes in other skills and abilities, for example, and their response to that is to be sort of angry and controlling about it. And then the rest, a third or so, these numbers are not totally precise, but about 30% or so also are aware things are changing with me. I'm losing some skills and some abilities. And their response to that is an anxious one. These are folks who really need their care partner to be around all the time, right? I feel insecure. I know I'm losing my memory and I need people to help me. And I really, really worry when they're not around to help me. So in communicating with people who are living with the symptoms of dementia, I want to encourage you to think about where in this pie they fall right now. Now, it doesn't, wherever they are right now doesn't mean they'll stay there, but setting your goals for a particular conversation or a type of communication that you're trying to engage in, setting a realistic goal based on how much insight they have can be very useful. So if somebody is not aware, they have anosognosia, they're not aware that they have been losing these skills, then our goal as a caregiver is not to try to convince them. I can't tell you how often care partners come to classes looking for a sort of a magic phrase that they can use that will sort of make it click for the person who's got dementia and make them understand you have Alzheimer's disease. You, for example, cannot drive anymore. It isn't safe, right? If the person is lacking insight into what's going on with them, we're not going to be successful in trying to remind them over and over again that their doctor told them that they can't drive, right? This isn't going to make sense to them. It's a little bit like the comparison I often draw is like, for those who can see colors, fighting over color. Right? You might think that the wall behind me is bright yellow. I happen to think that it's orange, right? If you and I were to argue about that, how would either one of us win that argument, right? You can't do that. And so it's similar when it comes to trying to convince a person who's got anosognosia, who does not have insight into what's changing with them. You can't force them to remember things. You can't force them to have insight. So what we need to do instead is change their attitude, right? If you can't drive anymore, what I need to do is come at this conversation differently and get you to think differently about the fact that I'm going to do the driving now, or I've arranged for a volunteer service to come and pick you up and take you places, for example. I need to change your attitude toward this thing instead of trying to convince you of something. So trying to avoid arguments, trying to avoid the tendency to point out things that you're doing wrong. Really helpful strategy here. All of this, by the way, comes to us through a dementia educator by the name of Teepa Snow, who's we've referenced her on the slides here. teepasnow.com is her website. She is an occupational therapist. She developed a method called the positive approach to care. And we're going to show you a brief video. You'll get to sort of meet her here a little bit later here this morning. So for the folks who fall into that aware and controlling piece of the pie, our goal is just to sort of stay close, stay connected to them, not get ourselves alienated, try not to make the person angry by pointing out or trying to step in and fix, coming over them and fixing things that they're doing wrong. We want to kind of stay in the shadows if we can, provide that support quietly, being helpful. Right? We're not just leaving them alone, but we're doing it in a way that makes it feel more like this is a thing that we're doing together rather than stepping in and controlling them. And then for folks who fall into that final piece of the pie here, who are aware of their skill deficits and feel anxious about it, our goal in our communications is just to provide lots of validation and lots of reassurance. We're a team. I'm here to help you, right? You don't have to worry about me. I'm doing okay, and we're going to get through this together. So being gentle, keeping the person's sense of what they value, what gives them a sense of meaning and purpose, and what they're still good at, keeping all of that in mind. So a hard truth about dementia is that relationships change as the disease progresses. And I wish that wasn't the case. I know how deeply painful that is. Relationships don't always change for the worse, but they frequently do. It is a struggle for both the person with the symptoms as well as the care partner. Just remember that they can't change what's happening in their brain. We have to adapt. We have to change the way that we're responding. And remember, you're changing too. Right? The experience of being a care partner is changing you. So this relationship is changing. So I've spent a lot of time talking about all the changes, right? Most of them not for the better, right? A lot has changed in terms of the structure of the person's brain, the chemistry of the person's brain, the way that they're communicating, the nature of your relationship. What I want to encourage you to do now is to think for a moment about what hasn't changed. And here's where I'll ask you to, in the chat, who feel comfortable doing so, take a moment and think about something about the person that you care for that hasn't changed, something that they always loved, that they still love, a food, a movie, a piece of music, something that was always important in their life that continues to be important in their life. So this could be grandchildren. This could be, I don't know, the arts. This could be time outside, going to the ocean. If you have any thoughts, if you have any ideas, please go ahead, put those in the chat. You don't have to reveal any names or any identifying information. We'd love to see some examples of that. We'll give you a moment here.
People are thinking deeply about this. Oh, music and shopping. Out in her gardens.
Gardening, yeah, I heard that one a lot. That's a lovely example. Music, being out. And tinkering, being an engineer, engineers love to keep learning and tinkering with things. Yeah.
Now audio since blind, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for this wonderful example here. Now listening to audiobooks since the person has lost their vision. Yeah, the dog.
Our dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We relate to that one for sure. Baseball and music. I relate to those as well. Wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, somebody that always loved baseball, gonna still love baseball. They're just gonna probably enjoy it a little bit differently. Oh, beautiful, being a mother.
asking what we'll have for lunch, dinner. So I guess
Ah,
just those opportunities to have that maternal role.
yeah. Somebody
Yes.
who liked to fuss over other
Yeah.
people, right? Cook for them and make them feel loved and welcome. They're not going to lose that. Yeah. A visit to
Starbucks.
Starbucks. Yeah,
Yeah.
great. Great. Please keep these coming. We'll keep moving here just in the name of managing our time here during the program, but we're going to keep an eye on the chat. Please keep sharing. These are beautiful examples and just what we had in mind here.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I am going to step in here and talk to you folks about our next section here, which is strategies for effective conversations, connection, and communication with the person living with dementia. And I'm having a look at still some of the chats coming in and enjoying those. So, and I guess let's just start off with the acknowledgement that communication is challenging. It's difficult throughout our lives. We have, how many times does it happen through the course of our lives that we have some challenging communication with someone in our lives? It might be a family member or a spouse or a sibling, might be a work situation, or, you know, at school with a teacher, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend. We have some disagreement, some communication challenge. And, you know, we're pretty used to this. It's a part of life. And when we add in the additional complication of some type of dementia, that makes communication that much more challenging and kind of muddier at times. So it's important for us to think about communication beyond just the language, particularly with our folks living with some type of dementia. And I want, excuse me, I want you to think back to what Amy said about the challenge for people with dementia to connect what is seen with what is heard. And as I'm talking about that, I want you to be thinking about, you know, what your body language and kind of all the visual cues you're giving as you're talking, and to make a check on, do these things match? Does what the person is seeing match with what I am saying? And so just to break it down a little bit, you know, obviously there's all different nonverbal types of communication that we are displaying. So the tone of our voice, what the facial expression is, our posture, any body language that we're using, physical interactions, and behavior. And think for a moment about kind of the classic scenario I think about with challenging communication is if my husband and I have just had some kind of spirited discussion and he says, "So what do you think?" And I say, "Fine." You know, what I'm saying is not matching up with the tone of my voice. Fine. You know, the tone of my voice is telling what's really going on here. It's not fine. And additionally, it could be the facial expression. If I kind of shake my head like I did and close my eyes, like, fine, maybe give a little eye roll. Posture wise, if, you know, I move away and kind of set my shoulders in a particular way, fine, that's communicating something as well too. And then just think, you know, about the body language that we're using and the movement we use. If I were to just shrug my shoulders and kind of throw my arms out and say, "Fine," that's communicating a different message again. And then if I were to go up to him and give them a hug and a peck on the cheek and say, that's fine. That's, again, a totally different interpretation of things. And in fact, one where fine and, what I'm communicating through all of these nonverbal aspects of my communication is matching with the word I'm saying. It's fine. And then, of course, our behavior is also contributing to that too. I can say fine and walk out the door and kind of slam the door. Obviously, things aren't fine. So I give you this example just for all of us to understand, how much we communicate beyond our language with all these nonverbal things, our tone, facial expression. And for our people living with dementia, they are really paying attention to all of these nonverbals. And these nonverbals is what helps them to match with what they see, to match that with what they are hearing. So think about that a little. So how do we connect? Well, we just really, first of all, need to be very physically present. And I think that's something that we are not maybe so good at over the past little while, perhaps, particularly with a pandemic and having to be together a large amount of the time. We get sometimes a little frustrated with that, and we're looking to create our own space and to get away from one another a little bit. But it's very important to be physically present with our folks living with dementia. So how do we connect? Well, we need to make good eye contact with them. So in order to do that, it's probably most helpful to be really kind of in front of them and have that physical position that is not right in their space, but in a comfortable zone, so they can see our faces clearly, so we can have that eye contact. And to offer an introduction, to begin a conversation or to introduce ourselves. Hi, honey, it's Jean. It's your favorite wife. Actually, it's your only wife, kind of a fun little introduction, saying who you are and what your relationship is, and or to introduce the conversation. Hi there, how are you doing? I think it's lunchtime, so how about I get us something to eat? So, and then going ahead to get some lunch for the person, but just giving kind of that introduction as to where this conversation is going. Pay attention to your tone and your volume. And in as much as possible, keep it, positive, keep it kind of happy and light. Try not to be sharp with your tone. Give extra time for the person with dementia to process what it is that you are saying. And then give them extra time as well to respond. And consider what are some of the other ways you can communicate with other senses as well, too. So perhaps it's with the eyes. Absolutely, lots can be communicated with the eyes. The eyes can tell us if somebody is saying something that is really meant to tease us, but to tease in a loving way. If something is funny, but we're trying to not necessarily show that, but we're with somebody that we share a sense of humor about these things, we could give each other a look that is a connection just with the eyes and maybe the eyebrows a little bit too. So think about these other ways that you can communicate. I think often of a lady I worked with when I was a geriatric care manager, and as her dementia progressed and she was losing more ability to communicate verbally and to not only to process what I was saying as well too. But what she retained was she just loved making silly faces. And that had been, she had a long history of that, and with her family as well too. So when I would go to visit her in later stages, we would just sit together and hold hands and make funny faces at each other. And she just enjoyed that so much. It was just a real connection between us, and it was sweet and lovely. And we would just waggle eyebrows and, you know, crinkle up our faces and stick out our tongues and just do silly things like that. And that was how we connected. It was really lovely. When we are communicating verbally, these are some techniques that we know work with people with dementia, and quite likely work for all of us. Sometimes I think we need to just remind ourselves of this. You know, we are, many of us are, myself I include, we like to talk, and sometimes maybe we talk too much. So use short, clear sentences and keep the instructions simplified and limit the choices. So no long-winded, you know, I want you to do this and then do that and then do the next thing. And then, oh, by the way, make sure to, you know, get your purse and your keys before we leave. Too much information. Keep it short, clear, and simple. Repeat questions and statements when needed, and be prepared to do that. And address the person directly so they know you are speaking to them. And again, avoiding talk that might be perceived as demeaning, humiliating in some regards. So referring to baby talk or elder speak, unless it's with someone you have a really close relationship with, and that you've always, you know, shared kind of a special or secret language. If you have, then continue to do so. But if you haven't, don't get started on it. And that's not something certainly that we want anyone that is interacting with our people living with dementia to be doing as a care partner or caregiver either. To be saying, okay, come on, sweetie, come on, honey, you know, just some of that language that is not appropriate for someone who doesn't have a close relationship and established ways of communicating with the person. So these are the try not tos, and let's just acknowledge they are the try not tos. Again, communicating is difficult, and a diagnosis of dementia is difficult. It is for care partners, and it is for the people living with the diagnosis. So do our best. We certainly don't expect perfection from any of us, but do your best to not argue and not correct. These are probably the two most important points in the list. As Amy talked about with regards to a person who does not have disease awareness, who has that anosognosia, trying to argue and reason with them is not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to frustrate both of you. And trying to correct that person as well, to try and have them understand, have that moment they see that they have memory loss and they have some challenges going on. If they've got anosognosia, they're not going to be seeing anything that they're doing as being wrong or as being that they need help with. So don't be trying to correct the person. And then another important one is reminding the person that they forgot. It's not helpful. And over time, all that really serves to do is make a person, you know, they not feel good about things, because it's a constant thing of being reminded that they forgot. And really, you're reminding them of a disability that they have no control over. What purpose does that serve? Serves no purpose for either of you, other than to kind of result in just this negative atmosphere. It's a negative communication. The same with questioning or quizzing their recent memory. It's like asking a person that's considered legally blind to try and read something. Why would you do that? You're asking them to do something that is beyond their control. And it just feels negative and it feels demeaning. Do your best not to take it personally in as much as possible. And you'll have days where you're better at that and days where you're not so good at that. So work on that as a skill. That really can help some days when you kind of work on building that as a skill, to not take it personally. These are just tough situations for everybody to be in. And so we need to kind of rise above it a little bit as best as we can. So what are some things to try? To frame statements and requests positively. And this is good advice across the board for all of us, to please do this versus don't do that. Just put the positive and the polite spin on things, and just approach conversations with generosity and forgiveness. Again, kind of bringing ourselves up a level on this, and understanding that, you know, we need to be gentle with our conversations, with our communication, and that kindness oftentimes will be more important than honesty. And that can be a challenge for family care partners and caregivers as well too. But there are times where the kindness really, I think, takes precedence over honesty. If a lady does not remember that her husband has died, and she keeps asking for him over and over again, and every time she's told that he died, and she goes through this grieving process again, is that the best thing? Is the honesty the better part over kindness in this scenario? I don't really think so, because then you've got a lady that's in this constant up and down emotional state, much of which is being spent in a grieving situation. So think about that a little bit. So absolutely, we want to focus on feelings and not the facts. So don't necessarily get caught up in the words that are being spoken. Pay more attention to the emotion behind the words that is being expressed. And remember that what the person may be saying might not even be factually true. But, you know, feelings can't be called wrong at any point in time. You feel how you feel. That is what you are experiencing, and that is not something to be corrected. So when we are focusing on the feelings and not the facts, and responding to the feelings, what we are doing is a technique that is called validation. And so when we are validating people, we are giving them that recognition and affirmation that, you know, what they are feeling and experiencing in that moment is worthwhile, that we are listening, we are paying attention, and we are acknowledging. So it encompasses kind of all four of these things of agreement and reassurance, understanding and empathy. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean we're saying we agree with something that's factually incorrect, but we are agreeing that we hear what they are saying and we are acknowledging that and giving them reassurance and understanding of that. Doesn't necessarily mean we're, going to stand by the statement, but we are able to join them in what they are feeling and acknowledge that. So we're going to take a moment here and see what validation would look like in a conversation with someone who is experiencing some type of dementia. And Amy's going to come back in here and we're going to kind of illustrate this for you. I'm going to just go back one. Amy?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, good. All right, so Amy is going to be in the role of a person living with dementia, and I'm her care partner. And so we're going to start. It's lunchtime, and I have just put a plate of some chicken salad, a chicken salad sandwich in front of Amy.
Chicken salad? No, gross. Why would you make chicken salad? I hate chicken.
You told me, Amy, that that's what you wanted for lunch today.
I would not have told you that. I hate chicken. I'm not eating this.
Well, look, I'm not making something else.
Well, then I'm not eating lunch.
Well, so have we had a very successful communication here? Not. Or a very pleasant lunch? No. So let's kind of do a redo. And so I'm actually just going to go back one. And now I put some chicken salad on a plate.
Ew, chicken salad. Ew, no, I'm not eating. I hate chicken. Why would you make this?
I'm going to skip this one and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot, Amy. I was in such a rush. Jeepers. It must have slipped my mind. Let's see what else we have.
Right? Kind of hard for me to keep arguing at that point, right?
Well, it is.
Right? I sort of won the argument in my mind.
Yeah. And then so maybe I go in the kitchen and I putsy around and I come back out and with the plate with the chicken salad sandwich on it, but now maybe I've added a little side of potato chips and a little glass of iced tea. Who knows? That might be the thing to make it work all right. But the point being here is, I didn't argue about the chicken. Maybe she did tell me earlier she wanted chicken salad. Maybe she's always loved chicken salad. But in the moment, we're not going to have an argument over it. And the reason we're not going to have an argument is because I'm going to just say, I'm sorry. I'm going to validate. I'm going to agree. Yes. And it slipped my mind. By saying it slipped my mind, I'm acknowledging, yes, you told me this before. So this is, my fault that I made this mistake.
Yeah, Jean could have argued with me all lunch hour long about the fact that I've always loved chicken salad, right? Is she going to convince me of that? Right? Remember, my brain is perceiving the word chicken in a certain way. It's perceiving what I'm seeing on that plate a certain way, right? Just have to remember my brain is taking in a bunch of different information than hers. So coming at it without an argument is much more likely to be successful.
And, this really could be a real life scenario. I mean, we absolutely have heard from families where the person living with dementia has their taste, their food taste has changed for them, and some things that they previously really loved, they won't eat anymore. And or the opposite, things that they never would eat, now they will eat. So, you really could have potentially an argument about this. And that's just not a good use of anybody's time or energy. So let's try another one, shall we? All right, Amy, you're the person living with dementia. Amy, it's time. We've got to get going here. Where's your coat?
My coat? What do you mean? Where are we going? You didn't tell me we were going anywhere.
Oh, we've got a doctor's appointment. Come on, let's get going here.
Why wouldn't you tell me that I have a doctor's appointment? I didn't know. You're
You've
always
been,
rushing me.
you've been seeing this doctor for years. You see this doctor every 3 months. It's on your calendar. We've got an appointment. There's no big deal here. Let's just get going.
Well, it wasn't on my calendar before. You must have just written that in there.
Well, I could respond by saying, no, I didn't write it in there. I mean, this argument could go on and on and on, couldn't it? So let's do a redo. So, come on, Amy, let's get going. We've
where? Going where?
The doctor's appointment. Come on,
A doctor's appointment? You didn't even tell me I had a doctor's appointment today.
This one. What? Oh my, did I forget to tell you about this appointment? I am so sorry about that. Oh my gosh.
Yes, you should really be more organized, Jean.
I know. I'm really, really sorry. Well, the appointment is on and we do have time. So how about let's go ahead and get it over and done with. Maybe we can go for a walk on the beach afterwards. So again,
Okay.
just a different approach, validating that what is she feeling? What was she expressing to me? Amy was feeling annoyed.
Mm-hmm. Rushed. I could tell you were in a hurry. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And was expressing her frustration with me over that. And by acknowledging that, saying, look, I'm sorry. And saying, I forgot to tell you about this appointment. Maybe I did tell her. Maybe I told her just actually half an hour ago. But in the moment, what we're doing is validating what Amy is feeling. So these are the kind of things we want you folks to be thinking about. So ultimately, what we're saying is more yes and less no. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Amy, and she is going to tell us about some other things that are important here.
Great, thank you. So I want to talk a bit about behavior. What exactly do we mean when we talk about behavior or behavioral expression? We're just talking, the term does tend to have a pretty negative connotation. And I understand that because typically people aren't seeking support around behavior when it's positive and when it's pleasant, right? But the word itself doesn't necessarily imply something negative. It's just referring to a person responding to something differently than they would have outside of this condition, right? So it's an out of character for them response to something that is real in their environment. And when I say that it's real, right, it's real to them. So remember that behaviors are symptoms. Behaviors are a way of communicating something. We'll talk more about that here in a moment. It's generally an expression of some kind of a need. So we want to try to reframe the way that we think about behavior, look at it as a form of communication with you, whether that communication is what the person is intending or not. So here, just as a general reference for you, some of the common behavioral expressions that we see in people who are living with dementia. And I do want to point out that we have resources, informational tip sheets, and a whole separate webinar on the topic of coping with personality and behavior changes. For now, I just want to sort of make sure that you know what I'm talking about when I say behavior or behavioral expressions, things being restless, rummaging, pacing, for example, anxiety, agitation, repetition, which we've talked about a bit here, shadowing, where the person just sort of sticks to you like glue, right? They really don't want you out of their sight for too long. Depressive symptoms or tearfulness, sadness, becoming socially withdrawn, which we spoke about earlier, becoming aggressive or combative. That can be arguing. It can also be physical sometimes. Suspicious or paranoid behavior, wandering, Wandering is a big risk in people who are living with dementia, and it can be helpful to think about wandering as a response. There's something in my environment that's making me uncomfortable. I want to go somewhere else. This is an expression of some kind of an unmet need. Disinhibition, this can refer to lots of different things, but basically doing things that aren't considered socially appropriate, right, for the setting or the context. So it could be taking off your clothes in a public place. It could be making comments about people that you don't know, or frankly, making comments about people that you do know, that feel sort of uninhibited and socially inappropriate. Refusing assistance. This is another one of those topics. We have a whole program devoted to the topic of managing resistance in people who are living with dementia. But the refusal of someone's help is a behavior. I'm communicating to you, no thanks. I don't know why you're here in my space, but I don't want you to give me this medicine, or whatever the thing might be. Sleep disturbances, very common as the brain is changing. We will see people that their circadian rhythms become disturbed, but also one's sleep can be disturbed because you wake up in the middle of the night and you have memory loss, confusion, disorientation, and it feels like time to go to work. Right. So maybe that means, maybe this is an expression of I need more purposeful, meaningful things to do during my day. Right. And then sundowning. This is a phenomenon that's very common in the middle stages of dementia, wherein a person's behavioral, like agitation, disorientation, confusion, pacing, for example, might become more significant in the hours just before and just after sundown, right? Because of fatigue, because of the changing light of the day, lots of different reasons that this might happen. So that's what we're referring to when we talk about behavioral expressions. There might be others that you're coping with. Those are just the most common of them. So in responding to a behavior, we want to start by asking ourselves, is there something physical going on here? Medical, pain, discomfort? Is there something in their environment that we might be able to make an adjustment to? Then whether we can or not, actually, right, try to make those adjustments. We want to try to validate that person's experience. Go back to the communication technique that Jean was just talking about. Let go of the words that the person has said, right? The words are probably not what's important here. It's the feeling, it's the emotion. Validate that feeling. It's okay, whether they're correct or not. It's okay for them to have that feeling and respond to it, provide reassurance, and then redirect them to a more pleasant, enjoyable, distracting activity. So in thinking about the first two steps in that process, we want to look for what might be underlying this behavior. What unmet need might it be that this person is trying to communicate? And again, I want to emphasize that the attempt to communicate the unmet need may or may not actually be intentional and well thought out on their part. It might not be on purpose, but we can still look for these triggers in them or around them and see if making an adjustment will help. So there might be something physical going on, pain, a headache, arthritis, being hungry, needing to use the bathroom, being thirsty, or just being sort of not having had enough activity, either mental or physical, during the day. There might be something emotional going on with them, right? Are they feeling, because of the way they're perceiving their environment, are they feeling fearful? Are they having a moment of, not being sure they can trust you? Are they frustrated with a task that they're trying to do? Are they feeling bored? Are they feeling isolated? This can be hard for us as care partners if we're kind of one-on-one with someone all day and our company is not enough, right? But that's sometimes true. People can become isolated. They can feel disconnected and isolated even in the presence of other people, right? If our conversations are not fruitful, if we're not communicating clearly, if I'm not, you and I are sitting together watching TV, trying to have a conversation, and I'm not following the plot, right? I could be right next to you and still feel isolated, bored, right? Frustrated by what we're doing. There might be something medical going on, and this is critical to remember that, people with dementia still have a full, complete human body they're living in there. So there are other things that are going on with them aside from the progressive dementia. So if you see a really sudden change in a person's behavior, a really sudden dramatic change in their ability to communicate, we want you to be attuned to this isn't the normal slow progression of symptoms. There might be something medical going on here. Do they have an infection? Are they having a stroke, some other type of cardiovascular event? Are they coming down sick? Are they having dramatic pain? Are they feeling depressed or anxious? Right? Being attuned to the fact that there might be a medical condition contributing to a behavior when it is dramatic is important for us. And then finally, the triggers might be environmental, something in their environment. If the environment is unfamiliar, they're in a new place, or even if it's not unfamiliar, but it feels unfamiliar to them because of those changes in the parietal lobe that are making it hard for them to recognize where they are, right? Unfamiliar surroundings can trigger a behavior, sensory overload, right? Just too much noise, too much activity, and a gentle reminder that you are part of their environment too. So when you're under a lot of stress, when you didn't get a good night of sleep, when you're irritated, frustrated, angry, feeling grief, feeling sadness, all those things that are very normal for you to feel, right? Your stress has an impact on them as well. So their attempts to communicate some type of an unmet need can be related to lots of different potential triggers. Okay, so in validating, we want to try to respond again to the feelings of what the person is saying, not the words that they're saying. Look for the emotion, the meaning behind the behavior or the thing they're saying or doing. Respond calmly, provide reassurance. Again, those apologies that you saw Jean using in our examples, the role playing. Apologizing is a really, really powerful way to validate somebody, to just sort of, it just diffuses the situation. Whatever you're feeling, it's okay that you feel that way. And I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that you're feeling that way. I'm sorry that I made you feel that way. It's a very powerful diffuser of tension. Communicate that you understand. Communicate that you see this from their perspective, even if you don't. This is one of our great challenges, I think, as care partners. You don't know what's going on in their brain. You don't know how they're perceiving this situation. But if you can communicate to the person, I see your point. I messed that up. I'm really sorry that I didn't tell you about that doctor's appointment. Right? Just communicating with empathy and understanding. This requires us swallowing a lot of pride, right? Accepting blame for things we are blameless, for which we are blameless. This is just sort of a reality of the need to validate a person who's living with dementia. So I'm going to show you a short video. Bear with me while I stop our screen sharing here and switch to a new one. I'm going to show you a short video that is available at Teepa Snow's website. This is the occupational therapist who developed the positive approach to care that I mentioned. I'm going to show you this brief video. I'm actually going to skip a few minutes of it in the middle. I'm going to show you what she does with this person in terms of identifying a behavior, identifying an unmet need, redirecting, validating that person's experience, and redirecting the behavior. So let's see if I can. It's coming here. Okay, hopefully you're seeing that. Okay. I want to show you just sort of briefly that there is this whole library of free videos that are available on Teepa Snow's website. The Positive Approach to Care PAC videos about dementia tab of her website. What we're going to do is watch 2 snippets of this video that is called Challenging Behaviors.
Challenging behaviors, that's how we see it. They're misbehaving, they have problem behaviors. We've got to do something about this. Now I'm going to call a timeout right now because the biggest problem we have right here is you've already identified the source of the behavior. You're pretty sure it's them and what they're doing. Timeout. You need to take a step back and realize this is much more complicated than you think. And instead of being such a strong judge and jumping to conclusions, what I want you to do is back off and reframe this. I want you to realize.
Okay, I'm just going to pause there for a moment. We're going to skip ahead a few minutes. You're just, if you go back and watch the full video, you're hearing Teepa explain many of the concepts that Jean and I have been covering here today. I want to show you how she intervenes with this lady in the day program.
Challenging behaviors, it's not about them, it's about us and what we choose to do about this effort to communicate an unmet need and helping us figure out what is the need and how can we better meet it for success for both of us. Making a positive difference because we choose positive approach to the care. Now remember this lady? What do you think she's doing? You see her beating on the chairs, making noise, annoying people, and you know she needs to go to the bathroom. It's been a long time. You've tried to make her stop, but she won't. What if I told you she used to clean houses for a living? I'm going to try substitution and a positive approach rather than trying to make her quit. Miss Leona. Well, hey there.
Get your hand.
Get my hand out the way. You're trying to get them cleaned. Here, try this. She's a busy woman.
There you go.
I'm going to try a substitution here.
I'll trade you.
Not yet. Show her.
Rub it with that. Can you rub it? Yeah. Here, rub
We're
it.
getting there.
Trade me.
Wait.
Trade me. Here you go. Take this.
All right, give it.
You got it. Now trade out. There you go.
Ta-da.
Now rub it.
Now I show her, and there she goes.
There we go.
People are
Good.
less annoyed, not so much noise. And she's
Beautiful.
cleaning. Now I want to reinforce that. That's good. That's good.
2 more to go.
But I still haven't met
You're doing a fantastic job.
her unmet need. One more substitution.
Nicely done, Leona.
She needs to get finished with this
Boy, you are good.
so we can move on.
You get this one?
Watch me, I'm sneaky.
That's it. Good. Good.
I visually eliminate the task.
Whoa. Woo! That is beautiful. You did a fantastic job. Man, you're a good cleaner. Here. Thank you. All right, well, come with me and we'll sit down and take a break.
Oh, God.
I know you're ready for one, aren't you?
Now, before she goes to sit down, though, we have a place to go.
Oh, girl, you worked hard.
Oh, God.
You are one of the hardest working women I've ever met.
Yeah.
Well, Lord knows. Let's go to the ladies before we sit down, though.
Okay.
Okay.
We changed the challenge to success.
Okay, Jean, I'll stop my sharing if you can put your slides back up. Jean, do you have the there we go. Thank you. Okay. So I just adore this video. First of all, Teepa Snow is an amazing dementia educator. Jean and I are both certified in her training technique, the positive approach to care. So I'm generally just a big fan, but there's a couple of really interesting things that I always notice when I watch this particular video, which again, you can find on her website. Primarily what I tune in on is what Teepa doesn't say throughout this. She never tells Leona to stop doing what she's doing. That's annoying, right? You're bugging other people. Please stop doing that. She shows her what she wants her to do instead. That's very, very powerful. Remember what we were talking about, the changes in the wiring of a person's brain that make it harder for them to understand something that you say to them and much easier for them to understand what you show to them. Now, I know this isn't always possible because sometimes we're having our interactions by phone or, video conference. That isn't always possible. But when we can show somebody what we're asking them to do rather than directly asking for it. I also noticed what she validated her in a very skillful way when Leona got sort of snippy with her, right? Get out of here. You know, she, instead of getting defensive about that and backing off, like I might be inclined to do, my natural instinct when somebody snaps at me is to sort of, you know, want to get away from it. Deepa kind of leaned right into it and said, oh, I know, like she agreed with her. I'm being annoying here, right? Let me just finish what I was doing here. She didn't get caught up in the interaction. She didn't get into a power struggle with her. She just sort of acknowledged, I know I'm in your space and I'm sorry about that. Let's do this instead. It's very, very powerful. She knew the whole time that her goal was that redirection. Right? See if I can get my, oh, I don't have remote control. She knew the whole time there that her goal was to get Leona to go use the bathroom, right? But she never actually directly said that's what they were going to do. Because if she said, do you need to go to the bathroom? Right, Leona would have probably just said, no, I'm busy over here, right? So she redirected her attention. She ended the visual task. Instead of telling Leona, okay, you're done now. Now it's time to go to the bathroom. She deftly moved that chair around. So Leona felt that the task was done. Now she can go rest, right? It's very skillful. It takes some practice. So I want to, when we think about this final step of, you know, we have assessed the person's environment, what unmet need might the person be trying to communicate? We have validated their experience. We've told them that whatever they're feeling is okay. And ultimately our goal in a frustrating communication, or when we're in the face of a frustrating behavior, our goal is to redirect the person. So what I want you to do is think back to that thing that you thought about or shared with us in the chat about the person that you care for that has not changed about them. This is where you can draw when you need to redirect a challenging behavior, when you need to redirect a conversation, when you need to kind of reroute a conversation or a communication that's gone off track. Think about what that person can still do. Think about ways that you might be able to connect with them through their other senses, aside from just talking to them, right? What other things might they respond to, right? If I saw in the chat, there's somebody who still loves their dog, right? A pet that they always respond to, an old movie that they love, photographs of a special place that they enjoy, a particular view from a window that you know they find calming or soothing, a smell, a calming fragrance, a particular food, get something simmering on the stove or baking that smells good to them, or the use of oils, of course, can be helpful. Taste, food is very powerful. It could be a nice warm cup of tea, an old recipe, right? Or just a taste of some food that they really enjoy. Or sound, music is incredibly powerful. I actually saw a lot of that in the chat when you all were thinking about what hasn't changed about the person that you care for. I saw a lot of references to music. So is there a song? Is there, you know, a bit of bird song that they might be able to listen to outside, something that you can draw from? This can be a very powerful tool for you in kind of your toolkit, right, to pull from in those moments of frustration when you are looking for a way to redirect a communication. But I'd like to pause here and ask Jean and Allison to join me, and let's talk about the questions that you have submitted so far.
Thanks, Amy.
We can. We have some great questions. So there was a specific one about the parts of the brain that don't allow for long-term recognition of long-term relationships. And I know we discussed a little bit about how the disease affects the brain in the beginning, but I was hoping you could, because I can't answer this question, I was hoping Amy or Jean, you could help with the question regarding, is there a specific part of the brain that doesn't allow for memory of individuals?
Well, the brain function is pretty complex, and there's no function that we have, no ability that we have that solely resides in one place. So my ability to, for example, when Jean's image pops up on the screen and I know that that's Jean, right? That comes from a few different places in my brain, right? There's the part of my brain that my parietal lobe that's allowing me to see her, but there's also regions of my temporal lobe, as well as actually, I've known Jean a very long time. I've got both short-term memories of Jean and some really long-term memories as well. I'm pulling from lots of different places in my brain to pull all of these images together. Jean might look very different right now from how I remember her when I met her 20 years ago, and I do believe it's maybe been about 20 years since I've known you. Jean looks different today. I look different too, but I have shorter term memories that are also, filling in the gaps and allowing me to say, yeah, I just saw her yesterday and she looks the same. That's definitely Jean, right? Even if I wasn't sure it was Jean, there's another part of my brain that's reading her name on the screen, and that's going to confirm that for me. So there's no one specific, all of these cognitive functions that we do, all of these different skills are so deeply complex, and they draw from lots of different regions of the brain. But when a person is having trouble, having difficulty recognizing familiar people, places, recognizing that this is a pen and not a toothbrush, for example, right? That is frequently heavily involved, that is caused by changes in the parietal lobe, among others.
Great, thanks.
And I would just say, could I just add that, again, kind of put together what we've talked about a couple of times here today of connecting what is seen with what is heard. So if a person is starting to have trouble recognizing faces, again, it can become important to say, hi, Amy, it's Jean, your old friend. So introducing yourself and giving some context as to, what is our relationship.
Yes.
And that can go a long ways.
Right, and that's a perfect segue into another question, which was, would wearing name tags be an effective way to support recognition?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
It might feel a little strange, right, in your home or their home to walk around with name tags, but a lot of things about caring for people with dementia, caring about people with dementia feels strange and feel awkward at first. It might be really, really helpful. And Jean runs a lot of our early stage programs for us here at Alzheimer San Diego, and I know she has a big supply, a big stock of name tags all the time. Any comments on that, Jean?
Just that it's a default that we do to have people wear name tags, and it's just, I wear one. Everybody that I'm with in the early stage group wears one. So it's not just particular people. And I would say just have everybody wearing one. And frankly, it can be a help for everybody. And we just, if we need to reference anything about it, it's just that, well, memory loss is the challenge here. So we're gonna work around that just by using the name tags.
Thanks. And another question, I know there's a lot of people that have smart speakers, such as Alexa or Echo. So someone was asking, are those helpful as reminders for people with dementia, or can it be more confusing?
Ooh, I'd say yes and no. I'd say if the person already knows about Alexa and Echo, they're used to this technology, it could very well be helpful. If this is new to them, not likely to be a helpful reminder. But just a kind of a note on reminders more generally. Actually, Teepa Snow has a really wonderfully succinct way of saying this, and I probably will muck it up a little bit here, but dementia is much more than a memory problem, right? And if dementia was only a memory problem, reminders would help, right? Putting sticky notes up, getting your phone to buzz, setting alarms, using Alexa and Echo would sort of solve the problems of dementia. Dementia is much more complex. It involves lots of other domains and regions of the brain. And so just simply reminders alone are often not enough, but that's kind of a separate question, but it just sort of brought up that important point. Jean, do you have any experience using Alexa or Echo?
Well, I mean, I just would concur with what you have said, you know, I mean, Alexa or any of these other types of devices may be helpful for future generations down the road who are dealing with dementia. I'm not sure that they are helpful at this point in time. For one thing, you know, it's like it's a voice coming out of a box. It's like, again, as Amy just said, dementia is more than just a memory problem. So that can just add to confusion. It's like, well, who is it that's talking? I'm looking around, again, connect with what is seen with what is heard.
Right.
Who's talking to me? What is going on here? And additionally, you know, I mean, my personal experience with some of these devices has been that Alexa mishears things, and the people I know that use them, they have to end up kind of yelling at Alexa to do the things she needs to do, and it just then without dementia, it creates for a confusing situation. So
I do want to add, though, I totally agree. But every person, every situation is so different. We had a gentleman in a class a few years ago. I mean, so even, you know, before sort of every household had one of these devices, so many do now. We had a gentleman who his mother asked the same question over and over and over again. She was familiar with Alexa enough that he actually installed it so that she could just keep asking Alexa that same question over and over again, to sort of just, was like one less thing for him to do here. You know, I'm amazed that worked, but it did work. And so I just really want to encourage you, if you think it might work for your person, give it a try.
Yeah, and totally. And that's good. That's good to hear, because yeah.
Yeah,
Not,
I wouldn't have thought of it. And if I did think of it, I wouldn't think it would work, but you really
I
never
would
know.
agree, but there you go. You know,
Mhm.
nothing ventured, nothing gained. Give it a try. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And do we have any time for any more?
well, I think we need to get moving along here, Allison. I wish we did have time for more, but we do need to move along here. So I think we'll just get back going with our last slides that we have here. So I'm going to talk to all of you about some resources for ongoing support. And this is really important. You know, this quote, self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. And my goodness, that just resonates so much, and particularly in the world of dementia for care partners. You do have to give so much of yourself on a regular daily basis. And figuring out the times and the places and the means by which you take care of yourself and renew and reinvigorate yourself can be challenging. And if you're having troubles with that, please contact us and let us try and help you with that. You need to be caring for yourself so you can continue to give on a daily basis to your person living with dementia, or the person you're caring for living with dementia. So clearly that means, you know, good nutrition and hydration. And then all of these other things we know we should be getting is some exercise and physical activity to the best of our ability, getting a decent night's sleep whenever possible, and managing stress. And again, these things are easier said than done, and we acknowledge that right from the get-go. We acknowledge that. But I think all of you know that, you know, if you're not getting a good night's sleep, for example, you know, you just don't have the gas on the tank to be able to give and continue giving through the next day. You've got to find some time and some way to focus on these things that you need to do for yourself. And we do want to see our care partners getting their own social and cognitive activity in as well too, that is separate from the role of being a care partner. So with, you know, the friends that help to, the friends and family members or whoever it might be, neighbors or church members or your book club, whoever it is that helps to feed your soul and helps to fill you up so that you can continue giving. And of course, see your healthcare provider on a regular basis, your doctor, and talk about these things that you're having challenges with in terms of caring for yourself with your doctor. With your support system, how do you do that? By asking for help when you need it. And if you're not very good at that, talk to us and we can give you some coaching that will help you to become better at it. But the other part of it is then you just need to put it in place and start practicing it, asking for help. Stay connected again to the people and activities you enjoy that helps feed your soul. Think about attending a support and discussion group. We have those through Alzheimer's San Diego. And we'd love to get you connected to one of these groups so you can be connected with peers who are dealing with some of the same challenges that you may be dealing with. And try to get a break daily, a break from the roles and the responsibilities of being a care partner to a person living with dementia. One of the ways you can do that is through our virtual Alz Companions program, where we match up volunteers to families, care partners, and people living with dementia so that the volunteers can engage in virtual social visits with the person with dementia. And so it does hopefully give the care partner a little bit of a break. It might take a couple of virtual meetings to get started, but to give the care partner a bit of a break for a short period of time while the person living with dementia is visiting with the volunteer. So you can call us at our number that's listed here so you can find out more information about the program and sign up for it. And of course, we have all sorts of other programs, including our dementia experts, our team of clinical services people, of which Allison is a member. And you can talk to any of these folks Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 p.m. We have a vast array of resources and information to share with you. And so that's always a good place to make your first call when you're seeking information of some sort. Again, referencing our virtual support groups, we have many, and we can get you connected to those. Our online education and training, which presumably you folks are familiar with by virtue of being here, know that we do have a webinar library as well too that you can visit. As always, we want to acknowledge our volunteer tech team and to say thanks to Chris right now for being with us today, helping our families.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Helping our families and care partners to, you know, stay connected with us to be able to participate in all of these different things. We do have social activities and outings going on, and you can find out more about these on our website as well too. We do partner with and support local research here in San Diego County and are very pleased to be a part of that. We've talked about our Respite Alz Companions program. And lastly, we have Vitals, which is a volunteer program for people who are living alone in the community with a diagnosis of some type of dementia. There's the different ways to contact us through our website, our phone number, and the link to request follow-up that has been sent out in chat several times here today by Allison. So a couple of upcoming education programs. The one on February 10th is in Spanish, and it is, basically kind of if you're dealing with memory loss or dementia, just some basic information about that in Spanish. We've got Planning the Move to Memory Care, which is part 1 of a 2-part series. That's coming up here on February 22nd, and part 2 after the move to memory care in March, on March 3rd. All this information is also on our website. So we want to remind you that you will receive a link to a brief online survey after this program. Please do complete that. We are very keen on your feedback. That is what helps to shape future programs. A copy of the slides in the presentation today will be emailed to all of you at the end of today's program, and a recording of this program will be available in the webinar library in a few days' time. So that's it. We went a little over here, folks. I want to say thank you to Amy, of course, my co-host and co-pilot here throughout today's communication skills presentation, and to Allison for joining us as clinical services support. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you both. And thank you all for participating with us, sharing your insights, experiences, and asking some great questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to them all today.
Yes, agreed. So that's it. Take care, everybody. We will see you again next time. Bye.